Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Yellow Tape. This is Julian. This is Nitty. Happy you guys stopped by. And today we have a special topic to talk to you guys about. It's medical legal death investigation. Something that you guys actually know about probably decently well, but you may not have known that it goes under this name. But from here on out, I'll let Nitty take us home.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you, everyone, once again for joining us on our podcast. And if you can see, we are in person and recording live from New York.
Live from New York.
So the energy is really high in the studio today because it's New York. So I know this podcast about forensic, I'll get to that.
Fair enough.
So today, as Julian mentioned, we are going to talk about medical legal death investigation. So even before we get into what is medical legal death investigation and who is a part of this who does the work, so there are multiple people who are involved in investigation. So medical legal death investigation is nothing but studying the body and unfolding what went at the crime scene and to the body. So trying to figure out the time since death, trying to study the wounds on the body. So when we talk about all this topic, there are multiple people who help in assessment as to what happened at the crime scene. So the first are the medical examiners. Then it's the pathologists or the coroners, crime scene investigators, and they all come together in determining the cause, the manner of the death, and understanding the crime scene altogether. So that's what our topic is today.
All right. So what is the death investigator then? What is their purpose?
So interesting question. So the pathologists are the people who performs the autopsy on the body to determine the exact cause of death, and the medical legal death investigators or the medical examiners are the people who studies the cause of death and the manner of death. They look for signs around the body and on the body, and make documentations of the things that they observe. They help set up a perimeter around the body for crime scene assessment. They also speak with the next of kin, eyewitnesses, and they work with the police officers, the first responders, and the crimes investigators in determining, like I mentioned, that what was the cause and the manner of death in a way, because documentation and information gathered from the medical examiners then goes to the pathologists or the coroners, which kind of helps build the case even further with the information to know as to what actually unfolded at the scene.
Okay. All right. So the pathologist, coroner, and the death investigator are different things then.
Right. Yeah. The medical examiners are the one on the crime scenes. Forensic pathologists and the coroners are the people who work performs the autopsies and does all of that.
Okay. So since they're the ones at the crime scene, they're, I guess, the first to at least try and determine the different types of death?
Right, that is correct. So if there is any unusual death or some unusual injuries that are on the body, so it's their tasks to document and assess as to what happened. So the type of death is actually broadly classified into 5 different types. The first one being natural death, where due to any underlying medical condition, the death is the outcome. The second is a suicidal death, where the person takes his or her own life. Then the third is homicidal death, where one person takes the life of the other through actions or no action at all. It could be criminal or could not be criminal as well, depending on the type and manner of death. Then accidental death, where the purpose was not, the death was not the outcome, but it happened in an accidental manner. Undetermined, where you don't know what happened. So all these different types of death kind of studied or looked at.
So it's suicide, homicide,
accident,
accident,
natural, and undetermined.
And undetermined. Okay.
Yes.
Natural being something like a heart attack or something like that, right?
Right. So
Okay,
you have to
okay.
prepare death certificates. So for that you need to know the manner and the cause of death. The cause of death.
All right. So I guess how are they determining like differences between like homicide and suicides and natural deaths?
And that's a very interesting question. So that's where the medical examiners and the pathologist works closely together. So the medical examiner basically looks at the signs on the body for documentation. So say for example, if there was a death due to drowning, if the body was found in a water, like a body was found in a water body, the medical examiner will make note of it, but the actual reason, if the person was dead before drowning or died after drowning, would be determined by the pathologist.
Right. Okay.
Then if it was a death due to firearms, the medical examiner would like note it down as to where, if there was a firearm found, where was it, what kind of wounds were there, was it a close wound or like a further away, what state the body was found in. So all those details is provided by the medical examiner. They also look at different marks on the body. So say for example, it was a death due to choking maybe, or death due to strangulation, where you would have like prints or some force on the body, like you could see some ligature marks on the body. So all those evidences left on the body is closely looked at by a medical examiner.
All right. Okay.
Which is very interesting, because sometimes when you go to a crime scene, say for example if it was a suicide, the ligature marks on your neck would be different than compared to someone who pulled a rope on your neck and like tried to kill you.
What does ligature marks mean? More just the impression of the whatever the object was that was left around the neck if someone was strangled, whatever.
Right, exactly.
Hands, rope, what else? I don't know. Ties, zip
Yes.
ties, something like that.
Yes, exactly. And say if it was a suicide, then it would have been in a different angle, and would leave impressions, or maybe if it was a fiber used in the rope, would penetrate in your skin or something. If it was a strangulation, say for example, then my prints would probably be on the body as well. Say for example, if I use a pillow to strangulate, like kill someone, then I would have some the person who passed away would have some fibers on the body and things like that. Also, there are certain deaths which could be due to strangulation and loss of oxygen with asphyxiation,
Right.
which is autoerotic asphyxiations, where a person tries to create hypoxia for sexual pleasure, and then the person passes away. So now it's not a suicide, but it's an autoerotic asphyxiation. So
Okay.
all those minutiae, all those details are gathered and documented by a medical examiner.
Okay. So, well, between the death investigator and the pathologist or coroner, who is determining time of death?
Oh, interesting. So yes, the time of death, even before we get into it, it's important to know how to determine the time since death. So there are three different things that a medical examiner would look at. One is Livor Mortis, second is Rigor Mortis, and the third is Algor Mortis. So Livor Mortis is nothing but the discoloration. It's a purple discoloration that you see on the body, depending on how the body was placed or was found after death, time since death.
Livor mortis can be due from isn't that the blood like kind of pooling up on one side of your body? If you're found on your back, then your back would have those like purple type marks because that's where the blood is pooling, I suppose.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay.
So now if the body was moved from that position to another position and was placed now instead of like on your back to now on the front, then the ME would kind of know that, why does this discoloration appears on the back and not in the front where it was found. So that kind of also helps indicate if the body was moved or not and things like that, which is a good note for the ME to make.
Right.
So time since death again is also rigor mortis, which is like your muscles your body starts stiffening up with the hours that it has passed.
Yeah, rigor mortis is the one that's more commonly known.
Yeah, people usually talk about that a lot. And the third is Algor Mortis, which is the reduction in the temperature of your body with time. So now it is the
So your body's just cooling down to reach the outside temperature?
right, correct.
Okay.
Yes. So all this 3 notification has to be kind of made by the medical examiner,
Right.
because they are the one who goes to the crime scene. And they are the one who makes the documentation before it goes to the pathologist.
Okay.
So they try to help determine the time since death, and they look at all these different parameters, and also the type of death it was, which is natural, suicide, or whatever. But of course, they can't make a determination unless and until the pathologist would perform the autopsy. The crime scene investigators would have other evidences and all of that, but they could have documentation that this was what was observed, and then it's a collaborative effort to determine the manner and the cause of death.
Isn't there another way to get like time of death with the bugs? What do you call that person?
Oh yes, entomologist.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
So which is interesting because it's not always that you find a body right away, right? It's possible that you find a body in a couple of weeks, months, or years. So the body decomposes like anything else,
Right.
in the natural environment or wherever it was stored. So at that point, depending on the environment, if there was any insects or things found on the decomposed body, would be studied by the medical examiner or the pathologist or whoever is responsible for the case,
Right.
and the resources that the lab has to determine,
Okay.
not only basis on how the body was found, but also through insects.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that entomologist? Can that person also be the death investigator or like the coroner, or is that person like a sole entity of maybe hired or contracted through the local police department?
So I'm unaware of that, if there is a special person who comes in, but it's something that we could research more on, I guess.
Definitely.
And share it with the audience, which is a good question. We'll keep it for the other episodes.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's interesting. The reason why we are talking about medical legal death investigation is because it's usually people talk about crimes investigation, crime scene reconstruction, but that's the wider perspective. So we are kind of honing on at the body now, and we're talking about the body. So I remember, like, if you would have guys, if you listen to last episode where Julian talks about blood spatter analysis, the blood comes through wounds, right? It has to come from a body where something went through. So the medical examiner kind of also looks at those body injuries, if it was a blunt force trauma or like it was due to a ballistics, like I mentioned, and all of that. So it's not only that a crime scene investigator who works on a crime scene, medical examiner is the one also who helps kind of piece it all together. So it's from the outside to now coming on the body. So it's all the things which kind of tie up together to give more corroborative evidence for the case that we are working, anyone is working on.
Right, because crime scene reconstruction is like a really, really, like I've said this whole time, it's a really wide umbrella, and if you think about it, everything we've talked about so far has pretty much been crime scene reconstruction, whether it's connecting the victim to the crime scene, the suspect to the crime scene, or the victim to the suspect. Everything we've talked about so far has been to get a more in-depth picture of what happened for this crime, at this point in time, with these multiple parties, pretty much. So perfect.
But our aim in this episode is to give a little bit information about the medical legal death investigation realm, but of course we will do more episodes where we talk more about
because there's so much things to talk about. Like I know I learned a little bit about Rigor Mortis and how it works, and it's a very complex process. I'm sure all of these are. So we'll definitely do a deep dive into the future. But we just want to give these guys before we start doing our deep dive episode, definitely want to give you guys a broad understanding of kind of what happens in the field, what we do, what other people might do, and just an overview of the life of a forensic scientist.
That's true, yes. So once again, guys, thank you so much. Before we wrap it up, Do not forget to please
Like
share.
and subscribe.
Thank you, Julian, for that. And please follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube.
We have a Facebook?
Sorry. Please
Facebook
follow.
on the way. Facebook on the way. Now we gotta make one.
Oh, now we gotta make
Now we
one.
gotta make one.
And if you have any questions, concerns, suggestions, or if you would like to hear from someone that you are interested in the field of forensic, we'll try to talk with them and get them on the show. So any questions, concerns, again, please leave a comment below, and please stay tuned. We have a lot of interesting episodes coming up soon where we are talking about cases, and also like a deep dive now into forensic is about to happen. So stay tuned.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Peace.
Peace.